Hello, it's Kevin here again. Time to look at another IELTS essay, actually 2 essays from members of my group, IELTS 9 Pro. Links below if you're watching on YouTube. So this is the topic. It's a recently reported one for general training. Today, many teenagers rely greatly on technology when learning. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? That's pretty much it. So we'll take a look at my essay first, and then I'll show you, and I will comment on the 2 essays submitted, and we'll see what they say. So this is basically using that sentence by sentence approach which you've seen me mention on several videos in the past. So for your introduction, paraphrase the topic, answer the question. Okay. In many years, technology deeply embedded, teenagers, blah, 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 from digital textbooks. Many students now rely heavily on technological tools. I could have made that shorter, but it's only 302 words, so that will do. Answer the question. While it may seem to be a benefit, it can hinder critical thinking skills and reduce meaningful social and academic interaction. So, in other words, although I don't actually say this is a bad thing, that's what I'm saying. Now, sentence 1, main idea, explain, example, reinforcement, as always. So, one major drawback of this over reliance is its impact on independent thinking and problem solving. What does that mean? When teenagers are constantly using the internet simply to find an answer, they lose that critical thinking ability to think or work through problems on their own. Now, this is the example which I wanted to use. As a teacher, I see this all the time, and I can tell when it's not yours. And there's lots of ChatGPT detectors available now, because the issue, universities for quite some years now have had plagiarism detectors. So when you submit an essay, they run it through these this plagiarism detection software. Now they've got all this artificial intelligence detection software now, because so many people are using it. Anyway, that's the example. They copy and paste, get ChatGPT. So essentially, this is passive. It leads to superficial understanding because you don't understand it. You simply, ChatGPT, can you write me an essay about blah, blah, blah? And you might not even read it. Can lead to superficial understanding and is a clear breach of discipline. Plagiarism can be considered, well, it is. It's cheating. So that's the first thing, because you're not thinking, you just... when I was at university, I'd go to the library, do a search for the topic, and I'd get a list of books in the library. I'd get them out, read them, I'd get a list of journal articles, and I'd go and read those. And then make my notes, and then I would write an essay. But kids these days, it's not what they do. So what's the second part? Well, it isolates people because, in the traditional classroom sense, right? So we would have lectures and seminars, yeah? So we would go to a lecture at first. The professor would, blah, and we'd have a reading list for the lecture and for the seminar. So the professors would take the seminar, we'd take our kind of notes, do all the required reading, go to the seminar, which is usually taught by a doctoral student or candidate, and then we'd have to be able to argue with them about the topic. So instead of simply having an answer to a question, if you don't have any theoretical background or understanding, if you haven't done the reading, which is usually in kind of books, but if you haven't done that, if you're simply using technology, ChatGPT, can you write me an essay? Then if somebody asks you, defend this view, why do you think this, why do you think that, where's it come from? They can't really do it. I keep seeing videos all the time of liberal college students, most of whom I have to say have as thick as pig shit, and they have all the slogans, but when somebody questions them and says, okay, what does this actually mean? Where do you get this from? Can you give me an example of, etc.? They cannot, because they're fucking idiots. They have no idea what they're talking about. They just have a bunch of platitudes and slogans like Gaza, Palestine, Black Lives Matter, Transy, Tripe. They have the slogans, but if you stop them and ask them, give me an example of what Trump has done to, or like I saw one, this stupid bitch was like saying, Donald Trump has stolen my woman's rights. So this guy goes and says, okay, so what rights of yours has he actually taken away? Or they say something like, men have more rights than women, or women's rights have been taken away the less than like men. So the question says, okay, can you tell me what human rights men have that you don't have? They have no idea. Anyway, that's an aside. So that's kind of what this is talking about. So anyway, I'm not going to read it word for word. It's all there. You can pause and read it for yourself. So I hope that gives you the idea, okay? It's a negative thing for those two reasons that I give. In conclusion, while it's the potential, it's a negative trend because blah, 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 blah. Recommendation, your final sentence. I recommend a more balanced approach is needed, etc. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that should give you the idea. I'll just say that. Now, somebody sent me these two. Nowadays, the advancement of technology, on digital tools. Okay, now they don't like. So you've kind of answered the question. Well, it's kind of both, but as I will discuss in detail. But I keep posting, right? Links. So in the group on Telegram, I keep posting. So there's all these famous teachers like IELTS Liz, IELTS Simon, Advantage, all these other guys. And they've got lists of phrases not to include because they are meaningless. In this essay, I will answer the question and give my reasons. They don't like it. It's crap. Don't do it. If you're going to give an outline, give an outline, like I just did. Yeah? In my view, this is bad because blah, blah. Not in this essay, I will give my reasons. And the other guy, I think, does the same things, kind of. In the following paragraphs, I will shed light on... will you now? Okay, anyway, back to this. On the one hand, in this advanced era, the process is much more convenient. So, one sentence there. Okay. So, you're basically saying, because of the internet, we can find out what we want to know in just a couple of minutes. Okay. But is that necessarily a good thing? It's like, okay, so you know, you can get all your information immediately. I suppose that's okay. Whereas in the old days, you'd have to go to a library, read some books. But don't you still have to read the books though? Don't you still have to read the articles? So I'm not quite sure how it's making it more convenient. I mean, if you've still got to read the books and watch the videos, you still have to put in some effort. Now, if you're talking about simply finding an answer, as I mentioned there, okay, but I'm not quite sure what this, you know, and gain whatever they require without much effort. So they can easily find videos, books, and articles. But you could find videos, books, and articles before with just going to the the library, going to the library using the computer to see what they've got. So I'm not sure if that's better. Isn't it the same? Learning process more convenient. The process of training. I'm not quite sure if that works as an example. Traditional training takes a amount of time. Well, yeah, it depends what you mean by training. Being trained in what? Being trained by whom? So you can watch videos. Again, you need to tell me what traditional training is and how watching videos can speed your process, because you still have to be trained. You still have to watch a video or videos. I'm not sure if that's going to be saving time. And what training are you talking about? I mean, if you're talking about medical training, you're talking about training to be a doctor, you can't be watching videos. You know, you can't go onto YouTube and search for a video how to do an operation and watch that and then, oh, I can go and, you know. Okay. So we've got dependent, creative thinking. Yeah, chat GPT. That's an obvious one. That's good. So now, to make this a balanced essay, you need to be saying about an equal amount for both kind of things. You know, I mean, it says, is it positive or negative? You say, well, it's kind of both. I wouldn't actually do that. I would come down on one side. Like I say it's a negative. The next essay says it's a positive. I think that's easier because it's not necessarily asking for a discussion here. It's simply saying, is it good? Is it bad? Tell me why you think so. So we've got more here on why it's good and less convincing why it's bad. And then you say it's a positive trend. But you just said before it's both positive and negative. So now you say it's positive. So, but you just told me it was kind of both. And then you say here it's both beneficial and harmful. You see what I mean? So it's, however, it can be, so I'm not clear what, you know, so you say it can be both beneficial and harmful. However, it can be positive. It's positive. But it's both negative and positive. So you can see my confusion here. This is why it's easier to take one view. Yes, it's positive. No, it's negative. Then you can avoid this. Okay? Anyway, the English part is excellent. Now, English 10, right. An overwhelming majority of juveniles. You mean many teenagers. So I wouldn't be overly embellishing this. You know, it says men, it doesn't say an overwhelming majority, it says. Many teenagers, not all, and juveniles and teenagers prefer to use technology in various aspects. But it's not just about various aspects. It's specifically, if I get the where did I put mine? Where did I put it? It specifically talks about, right, so I'll just put this there so we can refer back to it. So we need to be talking specifically, or this essay needs to be talking specifically about, is it a good thing or a bad thing? That's what we want to know. Entertainment purchasing and so forth. Okay, but we're not interested in that. We're just interested in education. I myself am of the resolute conviction. Are you really? You mean, in my view, I think. Learning process. And then, right, in the following paragraphs I will shed, right, you can see why examiners don't really like this, over wordy. In the following paragraphs I will, okay, no doubt digital tools like smartphones. Why particularly adolescents? Why particularly? Why particularly? Don't most people or most adults have a smartphone? With obvious advantage, can conduct research using online, so can use the internet to do their research. Vast amount of information, any subject, for instance. I don't know why you specifically mention astronomy. Many teenagers? Astronomy? Okay, so it's, I kind of get it, but you know, it's a little bit vague. It's specifically, so right, this presumably is talking about at school or college, right? So that's what you need to be talking about. And why specifically smartphones? Why not computers? Why not laptops, etc.? Digital tools. So it's essentially talking about the internet. There's nothing else it's talking about. It's specifically talking about the internet. However it's accessed, that's what it is. Right? So people going onto the internet, typing in the question and getting an answer. Is that what it's talking about? Okay, different conscious to these devices, but it could be anything. It could be a tablet, it could be a computer. Okay, no explanation. Technological advancements, developing digital literacy. It's not unprecedented. Digital, well, yes, but do you know any teenager who can't? They're taught this stuff at school. All today's kids have grown up in an era without, they have grown up in an era with all these tools. It's not like people kind of my age who, you know, as a kid, we didn't have the internet. So we had to go to a physical library, get books out, we had to read them, we had to write by hand. Unless we had a typewriter, we didn't have it. We didn't have all these things. We had television, radio, physical newspapers, we'd watch the news on television, we'd read books. So technological advancements, what? So people have been using the internet widely for over 30 years now. Yeah, at least a quarter of a century. So unprecedented kind of growth, what, over the last 25 years? Adequate skills. Is there anybody who can't use, you know, is there anybody under a certain age that doesn't know how to do this? And it's specifically talking about learning, not in the job market. It's not talking about jobs. It doesn't say jobs. Specifically, teenagers when learning, so at school or colleges, over reliance on stuff like the internet, Google, search engines, Chat GPT, over reliance on those. The actual device to access it is irrelevant. That's not what it's talking about. And that's talking about the jobs, but it's specifically talking about learning, education, easy access to data, to enroll online courses. They've got the job market, which is nothing to do with the topic. So now, the previous video that I made, I went into this in detail and I explained about task response. Answer the question directly. I'm not going to show you the criteria. I did that in the previous one. So specifically when learning. So it's kids, it's teenagers, it's school and college. It's nothing to do with jobs or the job market. Okay, so I'll just put mine back on the screen. You can see mine doesn't go off. It's specifically education, learning, school or college. Okay, so I'll leave that there. You can pause or pause the screen and read it at your convenience. So you need to be very careful when you're writing, right? Make sure that you understand exactly what the question is. As I said, previous video, I spoke about precisely this, task response. Make sure that you get it right. Okay, hope that helps. I'll see you next video.